Okay, just for you guys all out there, we've already safety checked all those weapons we have on display right now because we're going to use these in some demonstrations, but we're going to go and do it again on camera just to show you guys these are all safe and unloaded. Thanks for joining us today on the bullet points. We are doing something a little bit different today. We're starting a series of videos called Roundtables, where we discuss a topic of the day regarding to legislature, anything that affects the firearms industry, the sport, gear, just anything that is going on that's kind of current. It doesn't always have to be legislative. Today it is. What we're going to be going over is Dianne Feinstein's new proposed assault weapons ban. A lot of controversy has come up since the shooting in Connecticut, which is just a horrible, horrible tragedy, and our hearts go out to the families and the victims, not just of that shooting, but there's shootings that go on every single day around the country that don't make the news because only one person gets shot or somebody gets harmed in some way, and so that's not as interesting or not as glamorous or over the top as something where a guy goes into a school and shoots a bunch of children, which is just horrible. So we're just going to go over kind of the details of that and with her new bill, and kind of talk about it a little bit today, because a lot of people we found don't know what's even in the bill. I've talked to several people who have said, "Oh yeah, I'm all in favor of that," and I say, "Okay, so I'm in favor of making sure guns stay out of the hands of criminals or people who are mentally ill and things of that nature. But why do you support this particular bill?" And they say, "Well, I don't really know what's in it, but I support anything that proposes more gun control." So what we would just want to do today is not come at it from a really hardcore political angle as much as just a straight up facts angle, and just doing research, looking at facts from countries who have more gun control than we do in the U.S. We're very blessed to live in the U.S., even though we're in one of the worst U.S. states, which is California, when it comes to gun rights. We have them stripped from us almost on a daily basis here, it seems like. But we're very blessed to live in a country that has that freedom, because a lot of places don't. So right off the bat, we are very fortunate that people have fought for this right for years, for us to be able to even own and use these weapons for even just sporting and recreation. So anyway, we're going to go over Senator Feinstein's bill a little bit here. It's set to hit the House floor, I believe, on January 3rd of next year, correct? So we're going to go over it just a little bit here.
So just some of the highlights of this new legislation that's being proposed is that it bans the sale, the transfer, the importation, and the manufacturing of over 120 specifically named firearms. We don't have the names of those yet. As they come out, we will be posting them to our YouTube page. These semi-automatic rifles, shotguns, and handguns, they can't accept a detachable magazine of more than 10 rounds, and it cannot have one or more of any military characteristics. Meaning it can't have a pistol grip or a telescoping stock, a forward grip or a flash hider, things of that such. This new legislation is going to be the 1994 assault weapons ban on steroids. It's going to add a few things to it, or clear up some ambiguity, if you will, that was included in the 94 ban. On top of it, there were some things that came out of the 94 assault weapons ban, and actually California law currently, which is one of the most restrictive states in the country. There was something that was known as a bullet button, which, because it required the use of a tool to release the magazine. You couldn't just easily remove it. It specifically states right here, it's banning firearms with thumbhole stocks and bullet buttons to address attempts to work around prior bans. So that's exactly what it's addressing there. Large capacity magazines, which is anything that's over 10 rounds, those are going to be banned. But this is in an attempt to protect legitimate hunters and the rights of existing gun owners by, it's going to grandfather in what you currently own, but you have to register your firearm, with the government. You're going to have to show your photo ID and do a thumbprint, as well as most likely you're going to have to pay a $200 fee per firearm.
And that goes to the ATF, right?
Which is supposedly going to go to the ATF.
Okay.
So that's some of the highlights of this. We don't have all the information yet because the full verbiage of the bill has not been released yet. As soon as that's done, though, we'll upload that to you guys.
There's a lot of talk about assault rifles, and I think that it's important that we go over what an assault rifle is, what the actual term is, what Senator Feinstein is calling an assault rifle, and actually talk about how they've been used. This here, excuse my reach, guys. This here is an AR-15. This particular one has been made California compliant by adding a bullet button and a few other features, 10-round magazine and such, so that this no longer qualifies or classifies as a quote-unquote assault rifle. This is a fixed magazine rifle. However, if you're outside of California or New Jersey or one of the other states that has really strict gun control laws, you may not have to add this bullet button. You may be able to use high-capacity magazines and have a lot more fun with your weapons. But an AR-15, specifically a Bushmaster, was quoted as being used in the tragic Connecticut shooting. However, what the mainstream media and what a lot of people are not mentioning is that according to MSNBC, the AR-15 that the shooter had never made it out of his trunk. Mm-hmm. The gun was never used.
He used 4 handguns.
Correct. It was 4 handguns, and we've got some examples of those right here. One of the handguns was a Glock. This is a pretty standard gun that a lot of law enforcement uses. Some military uses. This is a very, very popular firearm. But the ban that's going on right now is concentrating on assault rifles, on pieces of equipment that were never used, that I think the mainstream media has kind of gotten into a frenzy about, and it's just misdirected. And to that point, taking a step further, if they do, talk about not only assault rifles having bans and adding pistols and other such rifles to the mix, even shotguns, I don't think that's going to solve the issue. Australia went through a gun ban back in 1996. There was a national agreement on firearms that was enacted back in 96, and this happened after a very, very similar type of situation. There was a Port Arthur massacre where a man with a history of violent and erratic behavior killed 35 people and wounded 21 more. Sounds very, very familiar to what's going on right now. Australia got whipped into a frenzy just like we're kind of going through here in the States, and they put through a national gun ban, which is common fantasy that it makes society safer. In 2002, 5 years after that ban went through, the Australian Bureau of Criminology acknowledged there's absolutely no correlation between gun control and the use of firearms in violent crimes. So by banning these, by taking them out of the hands of law-abiding citizens, the only people that are left armed are now the criminals, which are the people committing the crimes to begin with.
Because they never buy a firearm from their local store or through legal means.
They don't go through the registration process. They don't go through the background checks.
They don't get fingerprinted.
Exactly.
Unless they get arrested.
Yeah. With that said, with Australia's gun ban that happened, back in '96, they've seen nothing but an increase in crimes. In fact, in 2006, so 10 years after their assault ban, their gun ban, assaults rose 49.2%. In a matter of 10 years, they're up almost 50% in assaults. Sexual assaults, so rapes, increased 29.9% in the same time frame. So you take guns away, and
Wow.
it's really not helping society. It's in fact hurting the people that are law-abiding citizens, and simply leaving guns in the hands of criminals.
It's encouraging the criminals.
It
Yeah, they
absolutely
feel more
is.
emboldened because no one's armed, and they know no one's armed.
Correct. And overall, their violent crime in Australia rose 42.2%. I mean, that's staggering. And when you think about, taking the guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens and, only empowering the criminals with these weapons, then, I mean, we're just headed down the absolute wrong path. Now, some of the things that the media will not report on because they're not as buzzworthy, or they're not going to get as much of a frenzy about, are the crimes that are stopped, the mass shootings that have been stopped over the last few years by law-abiding citizens that are carrying a weapon. For example, in '97, a high school shooting in Pearl, Mississippi was halted by the vice principal of the school after he retrieved his .45 revolver from his glove box of his truck. So this could have gone down exactly the same way in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a 1998 middle school shooting ended when a man living next door heard the shots, retrieved his shotgun, and came and halted the shooter. So if a gun ban were to take place and these people were not allowed to carry, then those psychopaths, those criminals, would have been able to go on their shooting spree unhalted until law enforcement arrived, which, who knows, could be 5 minutes, could be 20, could be 45.
One thing important to point out, I'm sorry to interrupt, but one thing important to point out that somebody told me the other day, they said, remember, law enforcement are first responders. They respond to something that's already happened. So that's nothing against police, local law enforcement, anywhere on any state, any country, wherever. They're doing their best. They are heroes. They're rushing into a situation of chaos and of panic, and something horrible has happened. But that's the problem, is it has already happened. It has already taken place, and there's nothing they can do about it. That's why most cops that I've talked to, even here in California, and these are level-headed cops, and I'm not saying any names or anything like that, they said they are proud to see when people who have a CCW can stop, even just with the presentation of a gun. Right. They don't want anyone to get hurt. We don't want to shoot anybody. Nobody is ever advocating that. But just having the presentation of a firearm in a situation where somebody else already has a firearm, I think Wayne LaPierre from NRA said it best, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And just even presenting that in the face of something like that, those cops really do appreciate it. Of course, you have to be a licensed CCW carrier. We do not advocate going against the law, right. Following all the laws in place. But having armed civilians who are really watching out for their community and guarding their community and their families and friends is something that most police, when you talk to them, they appreciate that, because they know that you could be there way before they could to save lives. You could already be in that situation to save lives.
Another point is you could be their instant backup.
Yeah.
If they have another first responder that's still 5 minutes out, but you're right next to them, and you're a responsible member of the community, you're there to help.
You could save a police officer's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, as there's all this frenzy going on, and the media's reporting the sensational nature of this, that we actually step back and take into account what's really on the table and how it doesn't even really apply to what happened.
Mm. Yeah, that's the things I think we're coming back to, is just the idea that no matter how many laws you pass, no matter how many how big a push there is for certain legislative actions to ban certain features on guns. I mean, that's the thing that's ridiculous about this to me, that I respectfully disagree with, is the fact that there's certain things I agree with, having a background check for people buying firearms. There are things like that I understand, because I don't want someone who's criminally insane or who has legitimate problems, who has a past of criminal behavior, or someone who's mentally disturbed. I understand the safety of keeping guns away from those kinds of people, and I understand that you have to protect society from someone who has a gun that shouldn't have a gun. But again, you're going back to imposing laws, and they're saying we need tighter laws, but there are already laws in place. That's the frustrating thing.
A great point is, and I hate to keep going back to the Connecticut shooting, but there's so many things that are in legislation right now that have absolutely nothing to do with what's on there. You know, mentally ill person that used firearms. Well, those firearms weren't legally in his possession. He was, what, 19 years old? 20 years old?
20 years old.
20 years old.
He tried to buy a gun before this happened too, by the way, and he couldn't. He was refused.
The checks in the system worked, actually.
Yeah.
To where he wasn't able to walk away from the store with that firearm.
Exactly, and you need to be 21 to own a handgun.
Right.
Well, he was in possession of 2 handguns illegally.
Four.
Well, correct, 4 handguns, but he was in possession of 4 handguns illegally.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line is there were checks in place. He was not a legal firearms carrier, and he committed these crimes. So again, taking the firearms from people who are law-abiding citizens and could have helped step in and intervene just will not help this sort of situation.
Yeah, I think the lesson to learn from this, if anything, is we just need to promote responsible gun ownership. Because then this is kind of where, you know, I don't know his mother, but in my opinion, she failed as a responsible gun owner because her son had access to those weapons.
Right.
She should have kept those under lock and key.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, no offense to her. That's just what needs to be promoted, you know, and that can be done by, you know, going onto the NRA's website. There's many places you can go online and look and, you know, learn about gun safety and how to properly store your firearm, and, you know, obviously how to safely travel with it from one place to another, how to store your ammunition when you're, you know, obviously you don't want to keep it with the firearm when you're traveling with it. You want to keep it separate and, you know, still under, you know, lock and key.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one of the main lessons to learn from this.
Yeah, those are all great points. I think that made me really sad about this too, that disturbed me the most, is that, you know, there's shootings that go on every year. This year has been really bad with shootings, with everything from the Colorado theater shooting to I know there was an Oregon mall shooting just recently. I think it was a matter of several months ago, that just got thwarted by the presentation of a gun, which stopped quickly, which is why you never heard of it in the media. You never heard of it because it ended without a ton of bloodshed, and the media loves to publicize and to, you know, put all over the press and all over the TVs of some horrible mass shooting. And again, I think what we all agree with here as a community of responsible firearms owners and sport shooters, you know, I have weapons because I enjoy the sport. I also have weapons to defend my home and my family. Those are the 2 main reasons I enjoy the just shooting and firearms in general. The thing we have to remember is that it was within about, I would say, less than an hour of the shooting happening. I was watching the news, and the first thing they started to paste all over the news is pictures of the guns that they found on the young man who did the shooting in Connecticut. They started showing pictures of a Glock. They started showing pictures of a 6-hour that he used. And they are showing the tools, but they're not addressing the problem. They're showing a tool used by someone who has serious problems, which is a serious issue in our country, is mental health, and, you know, having somebody like that who's able to get a deadly weapon and use it in just a horrible, horrible way. What I really don't like or appreciate about the media is that they try to politicize it instantly. It was instant. It was instantly saying, let's take the shooting. They did the same thing in Colorado, which of course they never told you in Colorado that was actually a gun-free theater. That was a gun-free zone. So that shooter knew when he went in there that he had free reign to kill as many innocent people as he wanted to, and that he would have no one there to stop him because responsible gun owners follow the law. That's the idea.
And another point to that is there were actually 8 theaters closer to the Colorado shooter's home, but none of them had no firearms.
Yeah, right.
None of them were gun-free zones. So, you know, he specifically picked that one because it is a soft target, because he knew that law-abiding citizens will not carry their firearms where they're not supposed to. So, you know, enacting these gun-free zones, you know, taking away responsible shooters' rights is certainly not going to help the situation. And I mean, Australia is just one country that's proven that. I think rather than making our own mistake and going down a path that we may not be able to recover from, we learn from the mistakes of others. So rather than learning from our own mistake, let's take a step back, look at what other countries. England is another one. You know, violent crime is up in England after after firearms bans.
Mhm.
So rather than going down that slippery slope, why don't we just take a step back and look at how it's been extraordinarily ineffective in other countries before we start enacting it in our own?
Yeah, and the same thing goes for England as well as China too. I've been reading more and more reports in China where they have a strict firearms ban in place right now, and there are issues of people using knives to commit massive crimes of violence. There are stories of you could use a car for violence. You could use it. And I know a lot of people have already made this argument, so I don't need to make it till I'm blue in the face. But any tool you use can be used to harm somebody else. There was a story in Massachusetts a few months ago where a guy drove a car through a restaurant. In fact, I heard this from another YouTube subscriber, or not a subscriber, but another great YouTube channel. And I looked it up, and the story was absolutely true. This guy drove, I think he had like an F-150, drove it into a crowded, I think it was a restaurant or fast food location, killed 10 people like that, just wiped out 10 people. And you don't hear the press instantly going, we got to ban Fords, we got to ban F-150s. Because they're not afraid of them. That's the thing, is that I think the press will always be afraid of weapons, afraid of things like firearms, because they are dangerous things and they are scary things. And when we go through the bill, like the Feinstein bill, what she qualifies as an assault weapon really technically isn't even an assault weapon. That's what's so sad, is a lot of people who promote this legislature, these types of legislative bills or whatever, they don't even know weapons. They don't understand guns. They don't know just different types of actions and stuff like that. Because I could have a single shot .22 rifle and I could still go out today and I could commit some horrible act of violence with it. It's not the thing. It's the person. It's the heart. It's the mind. Yeah. It's who's behind that weapon. And again, it could be a truck, it could be a bomb. Bombs go off places and nobody outlaws, chemicals that, components to make a bomb with, just because I know it's hard. But guns are the easiest target for people, I think, to ban, because they say, well, there's only one use for them, and that's to kill other people, so we just need to ban them. Well, guns save a lot of lives because they are used as defensive weapons. And that's the thing, is that when I'm presented with an illegal criminal who maybe comes into my house and threatens my family with a weapon, if I don't have a similar weapon to defend myself with, then my family's going to die. My 2 young children and my wife and I are all going to die. And you won't read about that in the newspaper. You won't see that on TV. You'll only see when someone who's criminally insane goes into somewhere like a theater or a school or somewhere like that, and they do something horrific with an assault weapon, like in the Connecticut shooting. Again, it wasn't even an assault weapon. That was left in the trunk of his car. They could use any kind of handgun or anything else, and again, it'll come back to more and more restrictive weapons laws and more restrictive bans on weapons, and it doesn't focus on the heart and the mental illness problems that are out there, to where the system will just spit these same people out. I've heard so many stories lately of parents saying, we have a son or a daughter who maybe shows some signs of aggression, but every time we report them to the system, or we try to get them help through the system sends them back to us saying, we can't do anything until they have done something horrible. That's what's really bad. Right, yeah. Is it's not until this person goes off the deep end and does something really harmful to other humans that they can actually be accepted in the system and get help for it. And that, to me, is all backwards.